Hello, everybody, and good Sunday afternoon to everybody tuning in today. Joining me once again is my co-host Harry for another installment of the Atheist Reformation Sunday service for January 12th, 2020, our second show of the year. How's it going, Harry?
It's going pretty good.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. So, you have some fun or get some work done over the week?
I did a lot of work during the week. That's what I usually do, Monday through Friday. And yesterday, I didn't do much other than get a haircut. That was my big plans.
Yeah, I did not get a haircut. I just pulled my hair back to make you feel less overwhelmed, or at least less jealous.
Maybe that's what it is. Your luscious locks.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, let's see. I guess we might as well just kind of jump right into things a little bit. We've got 4 articles to go over today. One of them is a surprise that I haven't even put links in the description for because I want to maintain the suspense even for you. So we'll bring that up at the very end. But we've got 2, I guess I'm not going to say serious, but at least more intellectually focused articles. One that's kind of obnoxious theist. He's kind of an extremist, but he's fun to address every once in a while because he's just friggin' goofy. And of course, the surprise article today, which will actually have a study from NCBI to back it up today. So I think you'll find that one quite interesting. My buddy Chris sent me the article the other night, and it's hilarious. But anyway, so as always, you can follow the Atheist Reformation on Facebook. Got that scrolling across the chyron down below. And everybody, of course, always please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if for whatever reason you completely lose your mind and decide that I am worth supporting beyond just liking, I do have some shameless self-promotion links in the video description below and on every other video for that matter. So, All right. So the first thing we're going to go over today is going to be an IRS probe request that was submitted by an atheist group. And I'm going to get that pulled up here. Let's see. Gosh, it just did not want to activate that page for whatever reason. So this is from Newsweek. I know perhaps not the most unbiased of sources by some standards, but it's an interesting little news piece, I think. And this actually posted on New Year's Eve, but I haven't seen any coverage of it. So I wanted us to bring it up and talk about it today. Now, this is talking about an atheist group, which you can see in the headline, asking the IRS to probe a megachurch over a pro-Trump rally, and they're saying that the event violates a rule banning political participation. And we're going to go through and take a look at it. So, okay, advocating for separation of church and state has written a letter to the IRS asking that an upcoming rally for President Trump be investigated due to it being hosted by a Miami, Florida megachurch in violation of IRS regulations on nonprofits, including churches. So this is from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the FFRF. And let's see. In the letter, Markert says IRS rules are being thwarted because Ministerio Internacional del Rey Jesus, or the King Jesus International Ministry, plans to host the rally set for Friday. So this would have been on Friday, January the 3rd, if I'm correct in that. And that this violates their 501c3 status based on their participation in and or intervening in a political campaign. Now, I actually find myself in agreement with that because I've had to research a little bit on 501c3 organizations in dealing with my help with the local gentleman here in Lufkin pursuing the sheriff's office.
Right.
And so this is going to be off the top of my head, but a 501c3 cannot do that. They cannot actually endorse political candidates, but in other particular circumstances, I believe if they had a 501c4 status, that they would be allowed to, because there are different regulations governing that type of nonprofit organization. So what are your thoughts on that one, Harry?
I mean, I don't think that they should be involved in it and this isn't going to be too much side of it right now, but just kind of like more of the religious side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the words that he used with his congregation, I don't think is appropriate. Like, it's one thing if as a preacher he wants to go and he wants to participate, and his congregation wants to attend, it's okay, I think, for you to have political views and to want to attend a rally. The problem that I have is he's using the church's resources to host the rally, and then in order to amp up the attendance, he is encouraging the people to attend as a sign of solidarity and support for him as their preacher. And he even gets a little bit further into the details of, people are afraid that by attending it would have immigration concerns, and not everyone who attends his church is necessarily a legal immigrant. And he makes some comments about don't let your fear get in the way. And it's really, to me, it seems like he's crossing the boundaries, going past being a preacher, and it's definitely a political ploy.
Right, I agree with you. Some of his statements are being included in that. The gentleman's name and the pastor and rally host, Guillermo Maldonado, who refers to himself as an apostle, reportedly asked his congregation to come to the Trump rally despite any concerns caused by the fact that many church members are said to be undocumented immigrants. You don't have to be a citizen, and I will give you an affirmation as your spiritual father and pastor. And don't put your race or nationality over being a Christian. Be mature. If you want to come, do it for your pastor. That's a way of supporting me.
And also the spiritual affirmation above. Like, those are statements I think are just beyond what a preacher should be saying.
Okay. All right. So what are your thoughts on it from the legal aspect at this point? Because to me, this seems pretty cut and dry. They're a 501c3, and the leader of that organization is hosting a political rally with the intent of supporting one political candidate over any other, as well as essentially interfering with or becoming involved with an election, thus violating their tax status.
So as far as the 501c3 status, I think it's pretty clear based upon how this article is written and the information that they highlight. I think it's pretty clear that it would qualify. I mean, this is Newsweek is respected journalist. FFRF they know what they're doing. They're a nationwide organization. They wouldn't pick a petty thing unless there was a question about it. So legally, they probably have the grounds to stand on, but that would be up to the IRS investigation or a judge or a court to determine. Politically, as much as I disagree with the phrasing of what he's saying and using church's resources as a means for a political rally, and I don't want to get too far off onto the whole, whether or not someone should be for or against Trump, because that's not really the question here. But
no.
What is relevant is how, as a politician, he uses Trump rallies. Like, those are a specific thing. They're not just like, oh, we're having a rally. Like, that's a specific tool that he uses in a specific way.
Right.
And it is incredibly political. It is not one of these, because I could see where George Bush George W. Bush may have come to a church as a preacher, or maybe even Obama could go to a church as a preacher and just have like a meeting or an appearance there, and not have it be like something that's overtly violation of 501c3. I think probably the best example would be, Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
Like, he could show up, make an appearance, have people who support him show up and show their support for him, and not have it be overtly political. But I don't think that's possible with Trump.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one. He's either dialed to 11 or he's doing nothing. I mean, that's the type of individual that he is, this type of personality he has. And, take it or leave it, whether or not you like the man on a personal or political level, that's who he is.
Like, there is no way he's going to get up there on stage and just be like, yeah, we need to come together as a country and support each other and be here for each other and show great faith and solidarity when we go through hard times. He's not going to do that. He's going to get up there. He might say that for 5 minutes, and then he's immediately going to talk about like how, Biden is confused and Elizabeth Warren this, and Nancy Pelosi won't let go of the articles of impeachment or whatever. That's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Again, I have a tendency to agree with you. One thing I might ask is if you would dial your speakers down just a little bit. It seems that for whatever reason, sometimes when I talk, it's coming out of your speakers and then reverbing into your microphone, I guess.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I just happened to notice it. So, when we change technology and change setup a little bit, there's always a little calibration that has to be done here and there.
How's that?
Do. Yeah, no, I think we're okay. So, I mean, yeah, again, I think both of us are kind of in agreement on this one, is that this is a pretty clear or at least on the surface, based on all available information, this is a pretty clear violation of the regulations listed within that church's, King Jesus Ministries, 501c3 tax status. And so with that, I actually do agree with Rebecca Markert from FFRF in sending that letter to the IRS. In particular, looks like she sent it to the leader of the IRS's Exempt Organizations Examinations Department, one Mary Epps. So, yeah, I agree. So I kind of wonder if that investigation actually happened, because I didn't see anything else news related in regarding this.
I doubt it's happened yet. If they
yeah, well, they would obviously have to wait until the event itself occurs, because it's one thing to announce it and then say, "Oh, we didn't realize, we're going to cancel it now." So I think we'd have to see whether or not that rally on the 3rd happened, and then see if anything comes of that.
Well, it was January 3rd, right?
Should have been, yeah.
Oh,
because this article came out on December 31st.
To the Google.
Yes, the Google Oracle. I'll let you do that. You've got your phone handy. I'm using mine as a bit of an elevator for my webcam. So
yeah, it happened. 7,000 people showed up.
Dang. Quite the turnout.
Yeah. That's a pretty small turnout for a Trump rally, but probably a pretty big turnout for a church.
And also it's Miami, Florida on it. So, I mean.
Yeah. So here's where I'm probably going to disagree with you.
Okay.
As much as I think that the church shouldn't host the rally or should not have hosted the rally, I really despise the idea of weaponizing the IRS in order to pick like petty arguments or fights with people, or to restrict people's actions. Like, I mean, part of it goes back to just disagreeing with the IRS in general, but it just really seems like it's just obnoxious to me. Like I can't really think of a religious reason not to, because I don't have any religious views of the IRS, but it's just super obnoxious that it's like, we don't like what you're doing, so we're going to mess with your tax status. It would be nice if organizations could like self-regulate so it wasn't necessary. But at the same time, it just like I hate that every time I hear someone's like, oh, we're gonna mess with someone's like tax status because they did a single event.
True, but it's a single event with a 7,000 person turnout, and it was a blatant announcement made by the pastor continually. And I mean, to qualify for your 501c3, you have to like sign acknowledgments that you understand the regulations and that you will abide by them.
Yeah.
So in my eyes, this is the same as being in violation of a legal statute, which it is a legal statute. And at this point, the FFRF's letter of complaint to effectively their investigative division or their examinations division for exempt organizations would be the equivalent of calling the police to report a crime, because effectively that's what it is. It's a violation of tax code. It's a violation of federal statute.
Yeah, but isn't it also kind of like if your neighbors are throwing a birthday party and their music's up just a little bit too loud and it's 9 o'clock, like calling the police for a noise violation? Like,
I would argue that that would be a false equivalence, considering that you're comparing a birthday party with a little bit of loud music, which is just going to be disturbing to a few people around there, to an out and out political rally being held in violation of federal law. It's not an equivalent exemption. If it was, say, a birthday party that was happening, say, downtown somewhere, and they blocked off a street, I could see that as being closer to equivalent, because at that point, you're affecting the entire city at that point.
but you're not affecting the entire city. You're affecting the people that choose to show up to it.
You're affecting the people that choose to show up downtown to shop or do whatever. So in essence, I mean, depending on where you work, it could be affectatious to the entire city. But the issue is you're causing a disturbance, at least to some degree, for a large number of people in a public fashion that shouldn't be, because, say, you didn't get permits to block that off. You didn't go through the process of getting the permits to be able to block that street off for that party, just the same as that church could have pursued a different tax status to be able to hold such rallies, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm drawing that line of equivalence.
But don't you think
there was a method available.
Listen, kind of honestly silly. Like, shouldn't they have it simplified? Like, if you're a church, why do you have like 4 or 5 different tax statuses you could have?
No, it's nonprofit organizations in general.
Yeah.
A church describes itself as being tax exempt, and so we have different levels of tax exemption based on what it is your organization is doing. They can still be a church, and that's not the issue. The issue is they're a 501c3 in violation of their 501c3 status.
I mean, I'm not arguing with the law of it. I just think it's petty.
Harry thinks something's petty.
I do. I think this is just.
Hey, Mr. Kettle, Mr. Pot called. He says you're black.
Yeah, ha ha ha. I mean, I understand it, and I disagree with their action. I just don't like the whole lobbing IRS complaints to upend something because you disagree with it. Like, it just, the whole idea, the fact that there is even a system that can be manipulated in a way to exact power over another by jeopardizing their tax status seems arbitrary to me. Like,
Except, and this is where I have to stop you again. FFRF did not jeopardize King Jesus International Ministries tax status. They did that. They did that by choosing to violate the regulations governing their nonprofit status. That's not FFRF's fault. That's King Jesus International Ministries' fault. They chose to do that.
So what would be
this is essentially just a national level of concerned citizen reporting illegal activity. That's all it is.
I'm trying to think of like an example of when this happens on the other side. Like when do evangelicals go and like complain about someone's 501c3 status when they get involved in politics?
Okay. Well, let's
The
see.
biggest example I could probably think of is probably like Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood is one. There's also an issue with atheist YouTubers when responding to other people's content, such as like taking snippets that are not in violation of fair use to review and either parodize or refute as an open response to it, where they will abuse a different system, in particular YouTube system. They'll abuse DMCA.
Yeah,
and DMCA is a federal copyright statute. So religious organizations make false claims through that all the time.
but at the same time, there's a difference between YouTube, pulling your video and the IRS launching an investigation.
No, not at all. Because at that point,
of course, it's a huge difference. YouTube can't put you in jail.
No, they can just take away your livelihood. Say a person uses YouTube as a career. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who do, and quite a few of them are openly atheist YouTubers who make atheist content, and that is how they make money. I know of several, like Paul Logia, and Rationality Rules, couple of others. So a false DMCA claim could cause repeated DMCA strikes that are false, if they're not removed in time, can cause the deletion of an entire channel and thus complete destruction of a person's livelihood. If that's not jeopardizing someone's status overall, you're jeopardizing their income. Whereas with that church, okay, you're jeopardizing their tax exemption.
I would agree that launching those complaints on YouTube as a way of silencing someone's voice is also just a loser thing to do.
It is a loser thing to do, but there's a marked difference between what religious organizations and religious individuals are doing on YouTube with false DMCA claims versus FFRF's letter to the IRS about King Jesus, about KJIM. The complaint letter for KJIM is legitimate in that they violated their tax status and thus violated the federal statute.
Did you just start KJIM? Because I don't see that anywhere in the article. Did you just really get tired of saying King Jesus?
I just got tired of saying King Jesus International Ministry. Yes. Well, so KJIM.
Just call him King Jesus.
No, KJIM.
I'll call him King Jesus.
That's fine. I don't care. But either way,
because
this complaint against KJIM is legitimate in that they have violated their tax status, whereas the religious organizations making claims against YouTubers is in violation of DMCA because the content being used is being used in the manner of fair use. And so by not doing that, they're actually committing a crime by filing that false DMCA claim.
Well, then
there's a bit of a difference here in that there is that it seems to me, at least in these two fora, on the one hand, we have the religious organizations, which are violating the law clearly in both arenas. And then the other side, in this case, the atheists, are not in violation of the law at all. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, this is completely legitimate, and I fully support it.
All right, so
I don't even support it. I don't even support it based on the fact that it's a church. I support it based on the fact that they're a nonprofit organization with a specific tax status and they are in violation of the regulations governing that status. And so somebody reported them. Great. If they want to do stuff like that, they should not have that tax status. Let them apply for something different. Or they should have applied for something different in the first place under a different tax status in the first place so they could do that.
I would feel a lot different about it if it was like one of the parishioners. If someone in the church had filed the complaint, I would feel completely different about this.
So your issue is from where it's coming from, not from the fact that it's happening.
Yes, it's a national organization that otherwise would have no concern or any care and not be affected by this group.
Except that they're in violation of federal law.
Yes, even if they're in violation of federal law, they would have it affects them at all. Like they have no dog in this horse race.
Hell not. They're citizens of the United States who may or may not support a particular candidate for president, and a nonprofit organization that is not allowed to do such thing has done such thing, and thus attempted to sway the opinion of all attendees, in this case, approximately 7,000 people. Whether they're atheists or not doesn't matter.
So let's focus on what we agree on, which is that they shouldn't have done the rally.
No.
We got that.
Or if they wanted to do the rally, they should have pursued a different tax status beforehand.
Okay, I can agree with that. We can agree on that. Now, whether or not the FFRF is being obnoxious is something we're just going to have to disagree on. I don't like launching federal complaints for investigations over something in which it's no one is really being like physically endangered or hurt here. People are being
harm has particular legal definitions. We're not talking about physical harm. We're talking about the harm of engaging in political activity when you're not allowed to, and using your status and your organization for a purpose that you're not allowed to use it for, to sway the opinion of as many people as possible towards one particular political objective. I'm not going to let you get away on that one.
That whole thing reeks of safe spacing.
No, it's not safe spacing. It is not safe spacing at all.
We can agree that the church shouldn't have had the rally, and I don't have
dispensing all that.
An IRS lawsuit.
But the fact is, the only reason you don't like it is because it came from an atheist organization, not a parishioner.
No, I don't like it because it came from an outside organization, whether or not they're atheist. It's someone who does not attend the church, who is not from Miami, and otherwise would not be affected or even know about this if they weren't having a rally for the president of the United States. That's the only reason that they even know about it.
I'm willing to bet that even if it was for a local election, they still would have filed a complaint.
I doubt it. I seriously doubt it.
I don't know. I doubt
they would have even known about it. Like if someone running for
if they're getting a 7,000 person turnout,
there would have been 400 people show up and no one would have cared, and they all would have eaten hot dogs.
But that doesn't make it any less illegal. That doesn't make it any less wrong.
And I probably would have disagreed with it if they were doing it for the purpose. There's a difference. I don't have a problem with a politician kind of, showing up at a church and then speaking about like some of their views to educate people. What I don't like is using it as anything beyond education and discussion of like, here are the issues I stand for just in case you cared.
But there are other ways to do it that would not potentially jeopardize the nonprofit tax status of an organization.
And possibly.
No, definitely.
Okay, there are.
Like it's Miami, number one. How many public schools are there in Miami?
Where the church is the only meeting place.
Okay, they can hold it outside. If it's raining, schedule another day, just like everybody else.
I'm giving you that we're discussing Miami. We're not talking about like
we're not discussing like Pasadena, Texas.
That's still basically Houston. That's not.
Oh, okay, fine.
We're not talking about.
We're not discussing Sims, Texas.
Exactly, something even I have never heard of.
It's a town about 6 miles south of a place I used to work.
Okay. Or what's the old city that had the song about it? Was it not Lukenbach, but I mean,
Lukenbach.
Song, but
yeah, Lukenbach
only has like 7 people there. Like they have a post office and that's it.
Oh, I can do you one better. I used to live in a place called Alto, Texas.
Yeah.
The only reason people know it exists is because it's a 4-way stop right in the middle of town on the main road.
Alto is a great example. If they had a politician come to give a meeting in a local church there, I would have no problems with it because they don't even have a gym anymore.
No, but they do have a school and an outside football stadium.
They don't have a school anymore, really. They have like a third of a school.
No, they've got a pretty decent
tornado destroyed it.
Oh, yeah. Tornado.
So that's like that right there. There you go. There's your example. If Trump were to go to Alto for a rally,
woo,
and the school said you
can't use here. Okay.
And there we go. That would be my perfect example of I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay. But only if it had been pursued as a public meeting space by the candidate and not a rally started by the organization itself. Because I do believe there is a legal difference between a political candidate asking an organization to use their area as a public space to hold a rally versus the rally being sponsored by the organization.
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of like too bored to argue anymore about this.
Anyway, I'm very legalistically minded, as you can tell.
Moral of the story, preachers, please don't have rallies at your church, and don't bring on candidates to speak with your congregation if you know that they're going to say incredibly divisive political comments.
Yeah. Well,
and if they are
even if it's not divisive, they could be the most centrist individual of all time. I wouldn't care. It's the fact that you're hosting a political rally sponsored by your organization.
Yeah.
And that alone is an issue. So now we're going to look at an article from the LA Times. And this is talking about atheism in the Latinx community.
Is it Latinx or Latinx?
I've heard it pronounced both ways. Latinx is the one I've heard most prevalent from Spanish speakers. So that's the one I tend to kind of lean towards, since they know their language far better than I ever will.
Well, it's not in Spanish. It's English. It's an English
But
term describing the Latin community.
no, it's a modification. Well, see that's something that I think would be a little sticky on, and it would probably be better to have someone who is a much better Spanish speaker than either of us, or a native speaker.
Well, I'm pretty sure like it was either Vox or BuzzFeed came up with this word like a year and a half ago.
It very well could have been.
Because I pronounced it.
But there again, the terms Latino and Latina, those are Spanish terms.
Yes.
And so even if it is
that we have appropriated,
even if it is something else put forth by Vox or BuzzFeed, even though I'm not a fan of either of those, because BuzzFeed in particular, 99 times out of 100, I would almost wager they're completely and utterly factually wrong.
But their tasty stuff is good.
Okay, tasty is one thing. I have tried a couple of the recipes on there, and they are kind of fun. They are really easy, and they do taste pretty damn good.
But their historical research and their actual journalism integrity on going to the chefs and their in-depth for tasty is really good.
Yes, no, with that, bar none. You're right, and I will agree with you on that one. However, I am talking specifically about BuzzFeed proper, not a specific subsidiary.
So we have something we agree on when it comes to this article, which is that tasty is decent.
Tasty is decent. Tasty is
all right.
I would even go so far as to say tasty is actually pretty good. As in depth as they go, with researching, talking to chefs, and this, that, and the other, and vetting the recipes before promoting them or even making the videos about them. Yeah, no, that's admirable, and they have a good team on there. It just strikes me as odd that is where the raw journalistic integrity lies versus something where it would belong, like BuzzFeed News.
So Tasty BuzzFeed is like the Netflix original series for Netflix, and the rest of BuzzFeed is like the Netflix news shows that keep getting banned in other countries.
Yeah, which isn't BuzzFeed owned by NBC now?
I don't know.
It's like NBC or PBS. It's one of the big broadcasting companies. But anyway, so looking at our article, some 47% of Latinos describe themselves as Catholic, down from 57% a decade ago. That's a pretty steep drop. And according to Pew Research Center, and I have to say, in large part, Pew Research is one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to actually doing, solid polling and statistical analysis. And during that same time, we have an 8% increase, 23% as religiously unaffiliated, up from 15%. Now, that doesn't mean that they're atheists in that group of religiously unaffiliated. There's that wonderfully nebulous group of spiritual but not religious group of people. So they very well could fall under that category. And I know a few people who do, not in the Latinx community, but just Americans at large. I don't personally understand it because it seems even more absurd than being openly religious and adhering to a particular belief system.
It's wishy-washy.
I'm not even talking about it being wishy-washy. The reason why I feel it's a level of increased absurdity is they've gone through the process of dismissing virtually everything else for all the same reasons that atheists dismiss what they're holding to, and they don't seem to see the intellectual disconnect there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why I find it increasingly absurd.
There's two branches of spiritualism. There's agnostic, but I still believe in miracles,
which
which
doesn't make sense.
it doesn't make sense, but I don't really have a real hard time with those people. Like, I get it.
I mean, what I will say is this: I appreciate them being honest with themselves and with those around them in what they believe and hold true. I find that I have far more productive conversations with religious and spiritual individuals who are not apologists than I do individuals who are apologists.
Well,
Because 9 times out of 10, apologists are just touting an argument that they particularly like, that they think is completely unassailable, versus someone who believes because they believe, and that's what they choose to do. And that's fine. I don't begrudge anyone that. What I begrudge is people attempting to not necessarily attack or dismiss other people for not believing what they themselves believe based on some philosophical argument that, one, they didn't come up with, two, they may have researched a lot, but have done so in the realm of extreme confirmation bias, which is one of the most notable things I see, and basically forcing themselves into an echo chamber.
Yeah.
And then thinking anyone who tries to attack their argument, oh, that's been refuted 1,000 times. No, it hasn't. It's like one of the ones that's starting to make more of a comeback is a Thomistic argument talking about an unmoved mover or an uncaused cause. For those who may not be familiar, Thomistic meaning it's an argument written and purported by St. Thomas Aquinas back about 1,000 years ago, maybe more so now. And it relies on outdated science. Like it relies on Aristotelian physics, which relies upon celestial bodies like planets and stars not moving ever at all, when in fact we know they do. So it kind of all falls apart at that point. Yeah. But anyway, back to the article at large here. Looks like most of these are coming from family members and things like that. So another survey from Pew Research indicated that Latinos feel more unfavorably towards atheists than they do toward any other group. Interesting. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing here. At Alfredo Beltran's job in Commerce, a coworker announced that she thought atheists were devil worshippers. I hate to break it to you, but we don't believe in that thing either.
I thought you were going to say, I hate to break it to you, but we are.
Sure, why not? Everybody fall down, fall to your knees. All praise Baphomet. Yay, woo. No, sorry. We think that's bullshit. Although I think it's LaVeyan Satanism that they are atheist.
Yes. They worship the idea, the poetic ideology of Satan, which is synonymous with Lucifer, which is also Prometheus, which is the idea of an enlightened secular human.
Yes.
So that's all.
So I can, if that coworker has encountered a LaVeyan Satanist, I can understand to an extent why she might think that. And being in California, it's possible.
But LaVeyan Satanists are also like master trolls.
They are. But there again, most people aren't familiar with internet concepts or internet laws such as Poe's law, where something or someone holds or posts an ideal or belief or whatever to such an extreme degree that you can't quite tell if they're serious or not. So I can see where someone would merely take what the person says or what the Church of Satanism or Leviathan Satanism, whatever it is, purports as at face value. I can see where they would do that. I mean, because there are people who take the Bible at face value, and that everything in that book, from Genesis 1:1 all the way to the end of Revelation, is literal history and an exact description of what's going to happen. So with that knowledge in mind, I can see where the misconception can occur. So I'll grant her that.
Would you call it
the wrong
immaculate misconception?
If she is a biblical literalist, then yes, I will definitely refer to that as an immaculate misconception.
Start printing the T-shirts now.
Oh, hey, trademark TM people, whatever. I don't know sign language. I'm sorry. Yeah, trademark, copyrighted, all that fun stuff. Immaculate misconception.
Like flashing gang signs. You started a turf war.
No. See, I know the gang signs. That's the bad part. Is I know gang signs. I don't know ASL. I worked for TDCJ. We had to learn about gangs. So we have to know what those look like. Granted, there's probably like a dozen or more gangs that have popped up since I worked for TDCJ nearly a decade ago. So there might be some new ones out there that I don't quite know, and at some point, could walk down the street, your nose itch, you scratch the side of your nose and get shot because it's some surreptitious gang sign, the East Central nose pickers or whatever. I don't know.
I want someone to like have their location be called the Central.
That'd be pretty funny.
Anything, just the Central somethings.
Right. Let's see.
Again, this has nothing to do with the article.
No, it doesn't. So Tomas Rodriguez Jr.'s family thinks the 54-year-old man is going through a phase, and his mother jokingly blames herself for his disbelief in God. Then they're talking about Alfredo Beltran. Says he grew up Catholic and recalls the guilt that came with it. When it would rain, family told him it was because he had been bad, and that Diosito, I'm guessing that just means God is mad, or the Holy Spirit is mad. And at confession, he wondered why he would need to repent for forgetting to do the dishes and not taking out the trash. And he would attend mass with everyone in his family except his grandfather. Would always stay home, would hear little comments from him and there like, God didn't give me that meat. I got that meat. I made the money for that. And, I agree with that. I very much find myself in agreement with a lot of these things that they're saying here. It's like, no, I never understood the purpose for saying grace at a dinner table, because to the best of what I can tell through any scientific analysis or experimentation, no deity did a damn thing to put those mashed potatoes and gravy and steak on the table.
I would disagree with you.
Of course you would. You're an evangelical.
Yes.
But that would get into existence argumentation, and I don't want to embarrass you that badly.
Oh, I see what you did there. I think I'm of the opinion that God made all of the plants except for corn.
Well, considering virtually every iteration of food crop that we have nowadays is cultivated through through selective breeding.
Okay, well,
Like apples used to taste like dirt.
Yeah, that's the ones that God made.
Well,
We were
apparently God
healthy back then
sucks
when
at
apples
making.
didn't taste good.
Apparently God sucks at making fruit.
Or he made it not taste good for a very good reason.
Why?
Uh,
Fruits and vegetables are part of a balanced diet, don't you know?
yeah, not the ones that we have now. You sit around and have like pineapples and berries all the time and tell yourself you're healthy.
I said fruits and vegetables. All you named were fruits.
Tomatoes.
I don't do tomatoes. I am very much in the George Carlin camp when it comes to tomatoes. They look real nice and pretty on the outside, and then you cut it open and something has gone horribly wrong.
Well, that's because back then tomatoes didn't taste like they do now.
Yeah, they taste gross now.
They taste,
Gross.
ketchup.
Okay, no. Ketchup is made by blending a tomato into oblivion, adding a metric crap ton of sugar, and then blending the hell out of it again. Add a couple more things, and bam, ketchup. There is no way that I could ever agree to you saying that ketchup tastes anything like a tomato.
She's saying ketchup is not a vegetable.
No, it is not.
I don't like your reality.
Too bad. To quote Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings. I'm going to catch hell for that one, but I don't care.
All right, so basically, I'm not from a Latinx background, but I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of traditionalists that hold true.
There are. It's just in
Like we hear a lot of the same stuff. Like where the family just has this idea that if you don't have the same views and the same ideas that they had before, you must be doing something wrong.
yeah.
And it's really hard to talk to your family about differences in ideology or like anything that you've come to learn on your own.
Yeah, I
So
agree with you on that.
I think that when we look at it that way, the thing that is specifically Latinx about this article and about this issue is the prevalence of Roman Catholicism. And so,
Yeah.
statistically speaking, the traditional background that everyone's coming from is Catholicism.
Right.
So there's a solidarity, regardless of your particular family, with the greater community, kind of sharing that same feeling.
True, and that's prevalent throughout most of Catholicism. I mean, one need venture no further than your average Irish community that's diehard Catholic, and I mean, having been friends with some of those people, Dennis Leary's description is entirely accurate. They use guilt as a seasoning in their food. I mean, they like they have to. So I mean, and in all honesty, it doesn't get much more superstitious when it comes to overall belief than in Catholicism. I mean, their levels of ritualism run so deep and so far reaching that there's really not a whole hell of a lot of difference between, say, Catholics and some versions of Orthodox Judaism. Yes, they have differences in beliefs and they have some differences in rituals, but overall, they're stark adherents to ritualism and appealing to their authority figure constantly. I mean, and I used to be Catholic, so I kind of have a bit of insight on that.
Yeah, I would argue that in terms of actual faith, and that's one of the things that, like, as an evangelical and a Baptist, that's important when we talk about religion, that there's a difference between the sacraments and the tradition and the actual faith that guides your action. And I would argue that having these family guidelines that define what is acceptable and not acceptable, that limits your ability to question your faith and to grow it as an individual, that hurts you in the long run. So,
Well, see, Catholicism doesn't. Catholicism, at least from what I experienced, it didn't expressly forbid questioning the beliefs or questioning the reasons behind the beliefs. It was more that, and this I find even perhaps a bit more deceptive than just out and out disallowing asking questions like that. But it came down to you had to phrase a question in a particular way. So effectively, it would, set up a free throw for whichever elder, church member, deacon, or priest that you spoke with, could basically dunk on you all day long because they're answering a specific question that has been told they're going to be asked.
yeah.
Or you can ask the question however you want, but they're going to answer it. They're going to answer the question they wanted you to ask.
Yeah.
Or they're going to answer the question in such a manner as the way they wanted the question to be asked in the first place.
But if you go out to search for the answers on your own, is anyone going to, listen to what you were able to find and discuss your views of what you were able to research on your own? Or are they going to say, well, that's not something we need to be bringing into this discussion?
It depends on the situation. In large part, it tends to happen outside the church itself. Like, for instance, one of the more open groups of Catholic individuals that I've dealt with are on the Reason and Theology YouTube channel. I've actually done a few videos with them here and there. It's actually how I became acquainted with Robert Price. And they're relatively open. They enjoy discussion as a whole. One of their crew members and fairly regular contributors is an Eastern Orthodox or Russian Orthodox. No, Eastern Orthodox Christian. And so they tend to butt heads over a lot of different issues, namely things like the Council of Nicaea, Chalcedon, and other things such as Pelagianism and a few other things. But it seems as though they feel firmly rooted enough in their faith or in their belief system that they're okay talking to people from opposing viewpoints. But again, it strikes me as coming from not a level of intellectual dishonesty, but a level of asserting that they can't possibly be wrong. And that's where I find most discussions with religious individuals as a whole break down. Is that the overwhelming majority of them would not accept, under any circumstances, anything that shows that they're wrong. I mean, there's a reason why evolution, like the science of evolution, has been around for nearly 2 centuries, but it took until a decade or so, not even a decade ago, for the Catholic Church to acknowledge that evolution is settled science. And so far, they're one of the only religious organizations to have done so. Whereas you have tons of other organizations that are pretty big, and some of them are growing. One of them being Answers in Genesis, where they have a clear-cut statement of faith. And I'll even bring that up here in just a moment, if you give me just a moment. I'll even stop the screen share just to bring this one thing up. So, statement of faith. You have all of this information here. But Section 4, General. This is required to be signed by anyone who is going to be employed by Answers in Genesis. And they are required to purport nonsense like this. The days in Genesis do not correspond to geologic ages, but are 6 consecutive 24-hour days of creation. That the Noachian flood was a significant geological event, and much, but not all, fossiliferous sediment originated at that time. That the gap theory has no basis in Scripture. And perhaps the worst one of all, the most egregious to me, is, by definition, no apparent, perceived, or claimed evidence in any field, including history and chronology, can be valid if it contradicts the spiritual record. Of primary importance is the fact that evidence is always subject to interpretation by fallible people who do not possess all information. They put that little qualifying caveat as trying to be a cherry on top of a shit sundae. This is the kind of religiosity that I have a problem with. For anyone who has ever wondered why I do this show, why I got into this in the first place, it's because of things like this. It's because of such sheer intellectual dishonesty that they will never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, admit that they could be wrong. And that's one of the things that I think actually kind of bolsters what happens in the Latinx community. Well, in particular, any Catholic community or any religious community. It's generally the family members, more than anyone else, that will ostracize members of their own family for not believing the way that they do. And if that family member were to show them definitively that they are incorrect on something, they won't admit it. They shut their eyes, stuff their fingers in their ears, and pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think that there's unfortunately certain situations where that kind of response is warranted when someone has behaviors that are hurting themselves. There's certain things where you have to cut them off. But what's a problem is that on intellectual or issues,
right? That's all I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about substance abuse, self-harm, or anything like that. I'm talking purely about having an intellectual discussion or even a spiritual discussion with their family and disagreeing over a fundamental issue, and then being able to demonstrate that their family is incorrect and has been incorrect up to this point.
Right. And whenever I've been in those situations, I've seen those situations, when people have an ideological difference, they end up quoting verses that talk about when you need to cut someone off because they are a danger to themselves and those around them.
Right, but they're a danger to themselves and those around them because they no longer accept the faith.
And that's the thing, is they're equating those two things, and that should not be the case.
No, it's a false equivalence. Like they're quote mining their own holy book.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that just has always irked me as well, is that some people will treat the Bible itself as being evidence that Abrahamic religions are accurate and correct, when they're not. The holy book is the claim set forth by the religion to establish themselves. Evidence must necessarily come from outside the source.
If you're looking at something that requires evidence. I mean, if you're looking at a scientific principle, you have to have evidence to back it up. If you're talking about a religion,
I would say no matter what, if you want to make an argument for something, whether it be a positive argument, either for something's existence, for something's necessity in everyday life, or for something's perceived authority over another person or situation, you must have evidence to back that. And if you don't, it should be dismissed whole cloth. On those, at least in regard to those premises. Are there some good things in the Bible that talk about morals and this and that and the other? Yes. But those can be found in a multitude of other places. I mean, like George Carlin said, you can find morality and wisdom in the Three Little Pigs.
I mean, I'm going to venture that there are different realms of things that are important to our existence. There's the scientific realm, which, in order to do something scientifically, you have to back it up with.
Hang on, I have to stop you. I'm going to stop you before you go off on a tangent, and here's why.
Yeah.
Because I think you may have misunderstood what I said. I didn't say it was important to our existence. I said necessary to our existence. And when I say necessary, I'm being very particular in that our existence could not be but for that.
I don't think the existence of the human condition could be but for that.
Okay. And for that reason, you must have evidence backing up that thing's existence.
And I don't think that when you're talking about things that make us human that are necessary, like language and art and poetry, or
no, that's culture. That's not culture. That's like I said, that's culture.
Yeah, culture is necessary for us to be human.
All that's necessary is for us to be Homo sapiens. That's what makes us human.
That's if you're boiling down humanity to just a living, breathing organism.
Okay.
So that doesn't make you human. That just makes you.
That makes you a human by definition.
In order to use a description brought up by atheists, that makes you a shaved ape. That doesn't make you a human.
No, doesn't make you a shaved ape. I don't shave. No, I'm sorry. It doesn't make me a shaved ape. Being a Homo sapien, that's where it starts at. I am a Homo sapien, therefore I am human. There is no purpose to my existence aside from what purpose I derive from it and from what others derive from my existence in their existence.
So whenever you go and you study the humanities, are you just studying biology and anatomy?
Well, see, now you're making an arbitrary distinction based on semantic definition.
But that's
I'm just going purely based off like scientific and philosophical definitions. That's all I'm running off of.
We're not talking about philosophy here, because philosophy, it goes into culture.
Philosophy seeks to explain culture, but it is also informed by culture, yes.
So you can't run a scientific experiment to prove philosophy. It's not objective.
You can use science to, well, I mean, science is a branch of philosophy, number one.
You can't use utilitarianism to build a computer. You can use utilitarianism to decide where the computer should be distributed.
I didn't say I was utilitarian.
Well, I'm giving you an example of the difference between a scientific thing. You can use a electromechanical engineering to build a computer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But you can't use Locke's social contract to cure cancer.
No, but you can use Locke's social contract to inform the construction of a society to perhaps eventually allow the culture to get to that point.
Culture, man. Culture is therefore important for the advancement of a human society.
Right, of a human society.
Yeah,
that's not what I'm talking about. You're moving the goalpost here. I'm just talking about what makes a human a human.
And what makes you
at our base components. At our base components, what makes us a human is the fact that we are a Homo sapien. That's it.
I would disagree.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not arguing from some artsy-fartsy, wishy-washy, touchy-feely definition of a human. I'm just saying, what is a human at its base component? A human at its base is a Homo sapien. That's it. Anything else added to that is arbitrary.
I don't think it's going to be arbitrary. I mean, I don't really see how this relates back to the article that we were discussing, but
it doesn't have to at this point. It was mostly an opinion piece, so
scientifically based with empirical evidence, improvable beyond just that of a theorem. Like, it has to actually be proven. I think that's when we kind of ventured off into something.
No, I didn't say it had to be proven, because proofs only exist in mathematics.
Well, then what do they call it whenever you do an experiment?
You conduct an experiment.
Yeah, but whenever you see the results.
That's called drawing a conclusion based on evidence.
Okay. So a scientific conclusion is required for anything that's necessary in terms of being a human. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, we've shown that we are okay. So we as human beings arbitrarily decide what is good and bad overall.
I don't think it's arbitrary. We have systems that we utilize. They're just not.
Okay, how are those systems arbitrary though? We have to figure out how those systems themselves are not arbitrary. You have to start from the bottom to get to here.
If you're looking at things as exact proof completely,
no.
That's you might as well say that the Twilight series is just as good as anything written by Shakespeare. Because they put words on paper and they followed the rules of grammar.
But Shakespeare didn't follow the rules of grammar.
Exactly.
Grammar was very different back then.
Stephanie Myers is a better writer than Shakespeare because she actually followed grammatical rules. Shakespeare didn't. He created his own words. He couldn't even be bothered to obey the rules.
Except we don't know all the rules that existed that were extant back then for grammar. So maybe he did follow all grammatical rules aside from the invention of words.
We know the rules from back then.
Okay.
Like
which rules did you follow? You're getting away from the point. Is that we still arbitrarily define what is good and bad. We define now some things we define from objective observation, such as when we talk about most legal statutes, those are derived from whether or not something causes harm to another person, to another human. And so that how we go about punishing that is arbitrary. How we go about arguing that is arbitrary. But it stemmed from objective observation in that, okay, that person killed that person for no reason. But reasons in and of themselves can be arbitrary. And so we have to go through and choose for ourselves, essentially arbitrarily, what's a good reason for killing someone. And what we've come up with is self-defense and in defense of another person in most circumstances. That those are acceptable reasons to kill someone else. If and only if they are attempting to kill you or kill someone else. However, since the only value judgment being made at that point in time is that that person is trying to kill me, I value my life more than that other person's life, so I'm going to kill them before they kill me. That's a self-value judgment. That's situational ethics, because that other person in trying to kill me values their life over mine. So who's more right at that?
But how do you prove any of that with evidence?
What are you talking about? You're talking about proving the intent that they intended to kill me, so I killed them?
Does the existence of the law, is it necessary?
Is it necessary to whether or not we are human? No. It's arbitrary.
I would disagree.
However,
the law is necessary.
However, this is an arbitrary decision that we have made that through repeated use continues to justify itself, not to the level of being expressly necessary, because we could very well exist without it. It has no impact as to whether or not we do exist. What it does impact is how we exist, what our experiences are during our existence. And we have, through continued experimentation, through application, adherence, and punishment for failure to adhere, continually, most would agree, justified the continued practice of it, because it yields what we view currently as the best possible outcome. That does not make it necessary, but it makes it justified. There's a difference between necessity and justification.
So if we're to say that this is analogous to the topic of the article we're dealing with,
okay,
would it ever be appropriate for someone to decide that they were going to go out there and kill a few different people for different reasons so that they could figure out what works best for them?
Based on our current society, no, we would not. We would not accept that as being justified. But again, that falls back on our arbitrary distinctions of what we've justified as being conducive to the best possible outcome for our existence. It was not necessary to those people's existence, to our existence. The law, existing or not existing, being in practice or not in practice, has zero impact on whether or not you and I are human. Because we existed as humans without law for a very long time. The law didn't exist first. We did. We made the law up. So that clearly demonstrates the law is not necessary to human existence. Is it a good thing? Yes, it is a good thing. But that doesn't make it not arbitrary.
And this whole thing requires a paradigm where it's like there's a state of nature that just doesn't exist currently.
What do you mean?
Like the whole argument of whether or not laws are arbitrary or not to the existence of Homo sapiens, it
That state of nature did exist. Homo sapiens existed without laws.
but there's no way that it can currently exist.
Why not? Why couldn't it?
Once you are in a society and you have laws, your existence is always going to be tied to either the acceptance of those or the rejection of them. But you can't just go back to a level of purity. And in religion, we would almost call this like original sin. Like humanity has been tainted. You can't return back to it by making that conscious decision. 100 people couldn't just go off to an island like Lord of the Flies and decide that it would be okay to start, going back to bashing people's brains in with a rock because they disagree over how to split up the deer.
Why couldn't they? If say that island in the middle of the ocean or that island, whatever, was outside of the jurisdiction of any nation.
Because there'd be nothing pure about it. They would have.
Who said anything about purity?
They would have.
You're assigning a whole bunch of extra nonsense that I did not say. Could they exist without laws? Yes, they could. That doesn't mean it won't be a very short existence, but they can exist.
They would not be normal people, because the only people that would agree to such a thing would be psychopaths.
And what evidence do you have to support that?
Because scientifically speaking, if you look at actual research as to how people respond to whether or not they would want laws removed so that they had the freedom to murder each other, the only people that would say yes, that they would like that and that would volunteer for such a thing are people that are not normative.
Okay. But that doesn't mean that they could not exist without some form of law. We have justified the use of law in that its application yields the greatest amount of benefit for our species with the lowest amount of adverse effects. That does not make it a necessity to our existence. It just makes our existence better by our perception. We perceive our existence as better because we live in a society that has laws. That does not make those laws a necessity to our existence. That's the whole point I've been talking about this entire time.
So then there is no better for people to stay with their family's assumptions and desires compared with going out and thinking for themselves.
Reiterate that. I don't think I caught all that.
So the article we're talking about is people who their families have basically determined what they're allowed to think and why.
Mm-hmm.
And if they leave that, then they would be ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's okay, because it's all subjective. Your perception of whether that's a good or a bad thing is arbitrary.
Yes.
So then there's nothing wrong with telling someone you think the way that I do, or else I'm cutting you off and you're no longer a part of this family.
They're free to do that. At least in this country, they're free to do that.
I would object.
Is that conducive towards a healthy existence for themselves and their family member that they are ostracizing? No.
It's conducive for the ongoing of a society or a civilization, and because
it's conducive to upholding their current status quo.
So if it upholds your
Which
current
they may
status
or may not perceive as a good
quo,
thing.
why would we say that it's bad? I mean, historically, individuality does
Because
not.
that's our perception of that. That's our perception of that situation. Is we see that there is a greater net negative effect from doing that than there is a net positive effect. This has nothing to do with necessity at this point. Us looking at that situation from the outside in, we see someone being ostracized from their family for disbelieving. It has a greater net negative effect on that family and that individual than it would if that family would accept them for who they are and talk to them about it.
But historically, it has a greater net positive effect.
To ostracize people?
Yes, we only disagree with it because it goes against our ideas of morality, which our ideas of morality are not arbitrary. We think that ostracizing people is bad for specific reasons. But when you look at the guidelines of freedom versus safety, they're opposed to each other. Not having freedom, not having individuality, hunkering down and protecting your tribal group gives you more safety. But it also is not good for the human condition, and it doesn't advance human culture, because human culture is inherently a part of being a human. You're not just like Homo sapien clans that are battling the others. Like, tribalism is not a good thing if you're talking about the growth of humanity.
Okay.
But it is good if you're talking about the existence of and reproduction of your genes and furthering them for multiple generations and growing your numbers. If you're talking about that, then those ideas are good. They are opposed to the morality that we accept now.
And that's what makes morality subjective.
It's subjective.
Congratulations, you just proved moral relativism.
Okay, morality can be subjective, and
no, morality is morality is relative. Morality is relative to a few things,
but it's necessary to humanity.
It's conducive to our. It's conducive, not necessary.
It's not conducive. It's necessary. It's only conducive if you're sacrificing humanity as akin to the existence of Homo sapiens as a species.
Hold on. A child is born.
Yeah.
That child has no knowledge of law, morality, culture, society, family. That child has no knowledge of any of that. It exists, does it not? The child exists, right?
As a Homo sapien, yes.
Okay, then. That's human.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, that child is human.
It did not
require any of those things. That child is still human.
We're at an impasse here. There's what it means to be a human. There's actually a cognitive awareness in using the language, using your language in order to interact in a society, and having ideas and sentience. And then there's just being a creature with no awareness.
You're arguing for human as an adjective. That's that's not what I'm talking about. And I've been very clear from the get-go. I'm talking about being human as a noun.
So you're using it strictly as Homo sapien.
Yeah, I'm using it as a noun. And really, and if you look at definitions as an adjective, human, one of the definitions, of or belonging to the genus Homo.
I'm going to look up my definitions.
Yeah, there's other definitions such as relating to or characteristic of people or human beings as adjective, of or characteristic of people as opposed to a god or animals or machines, especially in being susceptible to weaknesses. What defines a human from dictionary.com? Any individual of the genus Homo, especially a member of the species Homo sapiens. What you're arguing for, I would say, is better described as personhood. Being a person. Because being a person is different from being human.
Okay.
Personhood is where we derive necessity for culture, laws, morality, social experience.
I'll use the other word then. We'll have that be personhood.
And in that, I'm in agreement with you.
Okay.
How we have defined person or personhood through our history, which it is an arbitrary distinction. To be a person, we've made it a necessity, definitionally speaking, to have these things. But at that point, now you have to go back to, is an infant a person? With no knowledge of culture, morality, society, family, law. Are they a person?
They have the potential to become a person.
Okay, but they're not a person yet.
Not until they have their own thoughts.
Okay, so not until they achieve intellectual independence.
Yeah.
Okay. That right there, that argument, the argument of a personhood, is in large part what governs the abortion debate.
They should be legally protected as a person.
Okay.
But they would not have their own individual rights until
Right, you don't get that till you turn 18 anyway.
Or, maybe earlier than that, depending on if they become emancipated legally.
Well, right. Aside from emancipation, the legal standard in the United States is 18 years. That's when you've completed your primary education and whatnot.
Yeah.
And even so, 18, using that is an arbitrary distinction. To define
that is pretty arbitrary because, yeah.
Because in reality, the human being doesn't stop growing and developing, well, for males till about the age of 24, 25. Whereas for females of the human species, between the ages of 14 and 16. So if we want to go from a scientific standpoint, I wonder if people would start arguing for young women to be considered adults before young men.
I think historically that's how things
Societally, that's how we've treated things.
Yeah. That's how things had been for a while.
It's kind of how we have seen things in the past up until about the last century or so. Yeah. I'd say about the last 75 years, 3/4 of a century. Because, my great-grandmother, she got married in the 19-teens, and I think she was 14 or 15, and her husband was like 25, I want to say. So a 10-year age gap, which isn't unheard of even nowadays, but nowadays we would call that pedophilia.
It would be really unheard of for back in the day for a 17 or 18-year-old man to become married.
True. And it was also uncommon for a 17 or 18-year-old young woman to not already have been married for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But that seemed to kind of no longer be the case around the 30s, 40s. Pretty much post World War II, I would say.
Yeah.
But there again, I think a good part of that would be because of World War II. We had that dynamic shift. Young men went off to war. A lot of them died. And so young women weren't getting married as quickly.
Really, it also changed. You could go back further to the Industrial Revolution,
Yeah.
where you would have been talking about post Civil War and the advancement of technology that could have made all kinds of different work not based strictly upon physical strength.
Yes, also true.
Anyway,
so let's get on into our funny thing now.
Okay.
We're going to talk about the Australian bushfires.
How is this funny?
Give it a minute.
Okay.
Remember last week where I mentioned a particular pastor?
I remember you've mentioned a pastor that you find
Utterly reprehensible and a piece of trash.
Okay. I don't remember the name.
Starts with an S.
A what?
An S.
S. I don't know.
We'll just go with it. Just read that headline. You're going to love it.
Who is this from? Oh, gosh. Well, it was like 200 arsonists, right?
Yeah, or it was a few dozen, something like that. As bushfires, let's read the headline. American pastor says why God set fire to Australia. An anti-gay pastor in the United States says God set Australia on fire because people like him were banned from preaching here. Says to narrow things down a little bit.
I feel like this is someone that I try to ignore. I don't let them occupy any of my brain space.
As bushfires continue to devastate Australia's southeast, a Christian hate preacher has claimed he knows why the nation has been set on fire. Stephen Anderson of the NIFB, known as America's most anti-gay pastor, said the destructive bushfires currently ravaging Australia are the judgment of God for banning and deporting preachers of the gospel. By the way, in July of 2019, Australia joined 32 other countries around the world who have banned Stephen Anderson from entering its borders. Been banned in all 26 of Europe's Schengen states, Botswana, Jamaica, Ireland, South Africa, the UK, and Canada for his repeated hateful statements wishing death upon LGBTQ people. He took to his church's Facebook page, Faithful Word Baptist Church, to post images of the bushfires. The post reads, maybe if Australia weren't banning and deporting preachers of the gospel, they wouldn't be under the judgment of God.
You know, I'm trying to Google information, and unfortunately, that's also the name of a football player, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming an actor.
I know the football player. I'm not sure the actor, but I mean, it's a fairly Anderson is not the most uncommon last name, and Stephen is also not the most uncommon first name. So it wouldn't.
Oh, a director, movie director.
Say what?
He's a movie director. Not the same one, a different guy.
Okay. I mean, he did take part in a production by some little prick in his organization, where they made a movie called Science Falsely So Called, where they're attempting to debunk evolution and fail miserably at every turn. It's pretty bad, okay?
No, this is more like Dahmer versus Gacy, which sounds like a Freddy versus Jason type thing, I guess.
It kind of does, because actually I think that movie involved like the ghosts of Dahmer and Gacy like possessing people and going on a killing spree, competing with each other.
Okay.
Something like that.
Oh, I hate when people do this. I hate when people try to make there's a book in the Bible about how you're not supposed to. You don't know what God is thinking or what He's doing, and it's sinful for you to try to assign your ideology and guess what His reasoning is. It's called Job.
Oh, it gets even worse than that. Have you heard of some of his past claims to, well, not fame, his claims to infamy?
Okay.
In the past, the leader of the Arizona church has praised the shooter who killed 49 people in 2016 at Pulse, a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida. Mr. Anderson called the victims a bunch of
terrorists.
Say what?
He's a pro-terrorist now.
Yep. He referred to the victims as a bunch of disgusting perverts and pedophiles and disgusting homosexuals who the Bible says were worthy of death. He has also encouraged his congregants to kill all homosexual people, saying it would be a cure for AIDS, and has advocated for world governments to execute gay people. Isn't he a wonderful guy? And if anyone can't tell,
we all agree that he's not. So,
what?
I said we can all agree that he's not a wonderful person. So,
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I would even go so far as to say that the vast majority of people can openly agree that he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, we can agree with that.
I mean,
why do these people? Why do they always add the word Baptist into the name of their church when, like, the Baptist denomination does not accept them?
Well, if I remember right, NIFB is an offshoot of the Southern Baptist Convention. They're an extremist sect that broke away from them, I think. I know that they both hate each other. But
no, this is the NIFB is a loose coalition of a few different churches.
Yeah.
Quote unquote churches.
Quote unquote churches, yeah.
They did not branch off from anything.
I am glad that, when you look up NIFB, one of the first things after their inviting violence with their Make America Straight Again campaign is Northern Illinois Food Bank. But yes, New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist.
The term independent refers to their refusal to join any affiliated Baptist denomination, as if anyone would have them.
Right. But yeah, lists 30 affiliated congregations on its website, including congregations in 16 U.S. states, Australia, Canada, the Philippines, and South Africa. New IFB churches have caused controversy on several occasions, usually due to their extreme opposition to homosexuality. But yes, they are relatively new in that they were initially independent Baptists. This group is an even more extreme offshoot of them, called the New Independent Baptist, or New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist.
Which, by the way, Independent Baptist does not mean that they are part of any of the other Baptist groups, because by definition, they're calling themselves independent because they refuse to join
a Baptist convention.
Actual Baptist organizations.
Right.
Why call yourself a Baptist then?
Because because as a general rule, they hold Baptist beliefs. They just take things to an extreme. Like there's the Crown Center at Pensacola Christian College. They're independent Baptist.
But the thing is that if you don't believe in soul determination, then why are you Baptist?
I don't know. That's a question you'd have to ask them.
It's not that I would ever have a conversation with them in the first place.
Yeah.
I've probably never run into them.
Yeah. But yeah, it was the new IFB, an offshoot from the original, or now considered old IFB, formed by Stephen L. Anderson of Faithful Word Baptist Church in Tempe, Arizona, and other Baptist pastors in 2017 in an attempt to revive what older independent Baptist churches once represented.
When did they once represent this? What year are they talking about?
The new IFB website states that it is not a denomination and that new IFB pastors have differing views over minor theological issues. The churches are united in following a number of doctrines. The NIFB's website lists its core doctrines as salvation by faith alone, once saved, always saved, King James Bible only, the Trinity, soul winning, hard preaching, pre-wrath, and post-tribulation rapture, and opposition to Calvinism, dispensationalism, worldliness, liberalism, and Zionism.
Wait, what? Wait, you said Calvinism is in there?
And opposition to.
Oh, opposition to Calvinism.
Yes, opposition to these next 5 things: Calvinism, dispensationalism, worldliness, liberalism, and Zionism. Yeah.
Not that it matters, but I am fascinated how extreme left and groups like this both
behave almost identically, but with starkly oppositional viewpoints.
Well, I was just going to say, when you listen to someone who starts saying that, their big problem is Zionism, not only is that usually a sign for me to start listening to someone different than the person talking, but it's weird how these groups don't agree on anything but want to blame quote unquote Zionism for the world's problems.
Right. When Zionism, at least based on every definition that I've found that's not from a hate group, is that they're a Jewish nationalist movement that supports the reestablishment of a Jewish state in the territory of Israel, like the historic land of Israel, where they're at now. And I guess them, it's okay, people who want Israel to be a thing that are also Jewish.
Well, if you go back to the 19th century, it was just anyone that wanted Israel to be a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of movement with the British in trying to reestablish that area and allow to have political autonomy.
Yeah.
A lot of people mistakenly think that it was a result of World War II, but it goes back much further.
Oh, yeah, that's been around for, like, the want of establishing a Jewish country, a Jewish nation, and is establishing the nation of Israel has been something that has been around since, based on just cursory research that I've done, at least the 18th century. But if you go by the Bible in and of itself, it's something that Jews everywhere are supposed to strive for.
Yeah, it's if you take the Bible as I don't want to say literal, because it's not a literal philosophy that's detailed in it, but if you look at the journey from the Old Testament through the New Testament, going back to Abraham, it's
about establishing the nation of Israel.
Overarching theme.
Yeah, it's about working toward the establishment of a Jewish nation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does this one dude in like Arizona care either way? Like, why does he care about Australia? Why does he care about these other things? And I can tell you what it is. He doesn't. He cares about being sensational and saying something offensive, and then getting people to go check out his website, which, by the way, if you're watching this, don't go check out his website.
Nope.
Don't give him likes. Don't get his videos. Do not give him hits. Do not give him any advertising.
No, not at all. I bring this up because the dude's a piece of shit. If I bring him up once and that deters all 38 of my subscribers from ever going and looking at his page, okay, I'm fine with giving him a single hit. A single hit in
Fortunately, you're looking at a summary of you're looking at a news article.
I'm looking at a news article about him, so I haven't even given him specifically a hit.
Exactly.
I've given a news article about him a hit. So I haven't even given him that much. And the information that I'm pulling from NIFB, I'm actually pulling from the Wikipedia page, so I don't actually go to this douchebag's website.
And that's exactly what you should do. You should Wikipedia information from people that you don't like instead of going to their websites. Do not monetize them.
I would be okay with this guy being shouted down. Granted, he has a right to speak just like anybody else. But if he shows up, he has a right to speak in public about whatever the hell he wants, provided he does not incite violence or violate any reasonable restrictions we have on the First Amendment. That being said, his right to speak does not grant him a right to an audience. If you find out he's speaking, don't go. If you hear someone in your family or in your friends that are thinking about going to hear this asshole speak, encourage them to not go. Show them this article. The link's in the description. Show them the article. Let them see what a piece of trash he is. And then don't go. He still has his right to speak. I would just much rather, and I'll support his right to speak until the day I die. But I'll support his right to speak to an empty friggin' parking lot. I swear, Steven Anderson is going to be one of those guys that is going to get investigated by the FBI for something. He's going to disappear, and he's going to be part of some militia movement in Montana thinking he's talking to God on a two-way radio.
He's going to get caught with meth in like 2 years, just like, what's that other dude's name?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because a guy named Donnie Romero, he was part of New IFB. There was actually a split within NIFB back in January of last year after one of the pastors, a guy named Donnie Romero at Steadfast Baptist Church, Fort Worth, of the SBC, resigned after it was revealed that he had hired prostitutes, smoked marijuana, and gambled.
Yeah, we take that whole gambling thing real serious.
Adam Fannin, lead preacher at SBC's Jacksonville satellite campus, refused to acknowledge the authority of Jonathan Shelley, another Texas NIFB pastor who took over SBC Fort Worth following Romero's resignation. Anderson, Fannin, and Shelley traded accusations of financial wrongdoing and running a cult, and Fannin was later ejected as lead preacher of SBC Jax.
What was the name of that group?
Steadfast Baptist Church and their Jacksonville satellite campus. Apparently out of Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, from Southern Poverty Law Center, an article from June 16th of 2019. Anti-LGBT church splits amidst turmoil following resignation of pastor, reveals fault lines in new anti-LGBT church network.
Shelley says that you should stone lazy gamers.
Huh. Okay.
So.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's NIFB. You ready to move on to the fun part? Ready to move on to the light?
Yeah, I'm ready to move on. Let's move on from that. Do we have any comments yet? Do we have any viewers?
I don't see any live viewers currently. However, yeah, no comments yet. But
so our bully and our crystal lover are not here with us today.
Apparently not. So, oh, you're gonna love this.
Am I? You don't seem to be really knowing what I want today.
You're gonna laugh at this one. You're gonna freak out a little bit.
I hope so.
Because here is our title. I'm just watching the slow realization pass over your face right now, and it is perhaps one of the highlights of my day. What?
What does this have to do with anything?
Basically, the question boils down to, if God is real and God created us, why did he put taste buds on our nuts?
Some very obvious answers there. Why do we have flavored condoms?
Yeah, but those don't go on your balls, dude.
You're right, because they don't need
if you're doing that, you're doing something very wrong. Yeah, testicles have taste buds that can detect sweet flavors, and apparently they're essential for reproduction. Oh, not only that, taste receptors on the testicles and anus can also detect the savory taste of umami, the amino acid in soy sauce. So guess what? Apparently you could butt chug a bottle of soy sauce and taste it.
Where is your penis?
What?
You said you could butt chug it.
Apparently. No. It says taste receptors. I'll zoom in for you, since obviously you can't.
Okay. All right. What are we dealing with? Oh, and anus. Okay.
So apparently you could butt chug a bottle of soy sauce and taste it.
I don't think that's a good idea for anyone. Please don't do that out there. No, we will not be
We're not saying
legally liable if you end up running into cardiac arrest because of that.
Yeah, no, we are not saying you should butt chug soy sauce. Please don't do that.
Wasn't there someone that drank a whole bottle of it and ended up
I'm going to make sure that they don't. Since some people have to be told.
Well, it gives a whole new meaning to fresh squeezed.
True. There. I gave them a ticker. Public service
Yes.
announcement.
Please do not. Why do I feel like this is going to be your first strike?
Why? I haven't violated terms and conditions.
So butt chug is not a...
If I can say the word fuck on here and not get in trouble, I can say butt chug.
Yeah, good point.
And personally, I find some of the non-profane methods of insults far more funny because they're just so outrageous. Like, perhaps one of the best ones I ever heard was from a Bruce Willis movie. You ever seen the movie Hudson Hawk?
Yeah.
Where he's like, you know, at first I was going to tell you to kiss my ass, but instead, slurp my butt. That's what he said. And you see,
I do not remember that.
Yeah, trust me, it's there. If I have to, I will look up the clip from the movie.
I feel like I've only seen that movie on network television.
Now I'm going back to please like, comment, and subscribe. I think we had our PSA of please do not butt chug soy sauce up long enough.
Is this
what?
What website is this? Who did this research?
Okay, so this article is from Daily Mail.
Okay, so right there, it may not even be real.
Oh, may not even be real. I'm glad you brought that up, Harry. Because, for you see, it is indeed a real thing. Pulled from PubMed and NCBI. But yeah, here's the abstract for the study. Specifically talking about taste perception from the tongue to the testes.
So you can actually taste the difference.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, there has been at least one amateur scientist who has done so.
Oh, it's just...
I'm going to present to you the evidence.
Strangely enough, I'm very hungry right now, but I don't want to find new ways of eating my meals.
Let's see if this works the way I want it to. Apparently, we've had at least one amateur scientist who has done just that.
What would be the purpose of this if, in terms of evolution?
Well, yeah, but no. First and foremost, I present to you the evidence. Someone, an amateur scientist, has at the very least tested the plausibility of whether or not your testicles can taste the difference between salty water and honey sweetened water.
Honey sweetened?
Yes. I'll just read it off because it's gonna be the easiest way to do it. It says he tested this with 2 glasses, one of super salty warm water, the other with warm water with a lot of honey mixed in. As he dipped his balls in the salty one, he could totally tell it was salty. But even though tasting 1 drop of it in my mouth would be disgusting, I didn't feel like there was that much impact. It's like his brain knew that those were in salty water, but that's it. Pretty weird. He said the same thing happened with the honey. He's like, I felt I could tell that they were in honey, but it's pretty different from actually eating honey. Didn't feel like it tasted good. It was just a feeling that the taste of honey was slightly present without actually feeling a sensation he'd compare to normal tasting. Even tried shuffling around the glasses with eyes closed, and he could still tell which was which. Just by
now that
by dipping his nuts in it.
honey diluted in water has a completely different touch and texture than salt diluted in water.
No, if you mix it in the appropriate proportion, the water itself will not gain any extreme viscosity, and that's because the sugars dissolve in water. Water is a solution.
But honey also has wax.
It's not it's suspended in solution. So the overall texture should be essentially the same. And he isolated looking at it by shuffling around without looking at them. So, I mean, I would say it'd be different if he just dropped his nuts in a pile of salt and then dipped them in a bottle of honey.
Well, that sounds like a good time.
Hey, if that's what you're into, if that's what gets you going in the morning, more power to you, Sonny Jim. But yeah, so going back to the Daily Mail article, since they probably paid to access the scientific study, and I'm not going to. Researchers had no idea why the body parts had the receptors until they tried to breed mice without them for a study on taste. Their accidental discovery showed that
breed mice without nuts.
No, not without nuts, without the taste buds on their nuts.
How did they isolate the taste buds?
Their accidental discovery showed that male mice were rendered infertile when they were missing the proteins GNAT3 and TAS1R3, or were given a substance to block them from working. Having only one of the proteins means the male mice can still breed, but it turned out that when both of the proteins were missing, the sperm struggled to swim and the testes became malformed. The males are sterile, sperm count is low, and spermatozoa are not developed properly. Researchers at the Monell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia have published their findings in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Mosinger also revealed that the drug used to block the taste receptors comes from the same class of drugs used to treat high cholesterol in humans, raising the possibilities that pills could be interfering with human fertility. Like much good science, our current findings pose more questions than answers, a researcher stated, Robert Margolski. We now need to identify the pathways and mechanisms in testes that utilize these taste genes so we can understand how their loss leads to infertility. Mosinger and Margolski also said that the groundbreaking findings could pave the way for new cures for infertility, or perhaps even a male birth control pill.
That's definitely a thing.
So, whipped cream in the bedroom, not just for pleasure anymore.
I didn't need to know that.
So, do you feel enlightened today, Harry? Have we broadened your horizons a bit?
I don't know. I don't even want to right now.
You just literally can't even right now?
Yeah, I can't even.
And remember, everybody, please do not butt chug soy sauce.
I'm so glad that everyone that I asked to guest star on this episode today turned me down, because I would have so much explaining to do.
Pardon the pun, but this literally fell into my lap last night.
I've seen you articles that you're like, no, I'm not going with that. We're not going about like how how toxic theocracies can be in certain areas and how we've seen them slowly decay over the period of 40 years. We're going with testicle taste buds.
Testicular taste buds, to be precise. It's what the
Testicular taste buds. Thank you for clarifying that.
Of course.
Otherwise, it could be understood to be taste buds for the purpose of tasting testicles.
I mean, technically speaking, through the rules of English grammar, yes, that would have been the case. And as always, continued public service announcement. Please do not butt chug soy sauce. MSG is bad for you.
No.
I feel that I have somehow broken you today, Harry.
Hey, what?
I said, I feel that I have somehow broken you today, Harry.
Yes, I don't have the. So, just so you know, the cats have not been here today. The girlfriend had to take them in to work with her, and they are fighting. So I need to go pick them up.
Okay, why did your girlfriend take them to work?
She works at a animal hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not like she's taking them to Wendy.
I was something of that nature, like a veterinary office, animal hospital, or some kind of shelter, as opposed to just got random cats in a litter box floating around inside of a law office or something.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. Starbucks, they decide they're going to help, whip up the whipped cream.
Therapy animals. I mean, that's supposedly a thing nowadays. But yeah, no, I think that's a great place to go ahead and end today's broadcast.
Well, it's definitely been an experience.
I'm sure it has been, Harry. Are you trying to hide inside of your Superman Hawaiian shirt now?
Yes, I am. My Hawaiian Superman shirt.
Don't worry, we'll keep finding some really fun stuff for you. Well, everybody, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in to another Sunday service with the Atheist Reformation and my co-host, Harry.
God help us.
Everybody have a great and wonderful time. And remember, please do not butt chug soy sauce. That is the Atheist Reformation's public service announcement for the week of January 12th, 2020. Please do not butt chug soy sauce. Thank you all and have a wonderful day.